Hi, this is Dr. Carl Goldkamp. A few things I have to say. One is, we personally are involved both as a lifestyle, the ketogenic diet, but also through my 16 years of clinical practice of what is effective. What do people need to take sometimes, all the time, to support their ketogenic diet? You'll get bits and pieces of this ongoing week after week. It's important to be comprehensive. In one way it's simple, and one way it's a little bit complicated. Hi, this is Dr. Carl Goldkamp back for another episode of the Keto Naturopath. First, let me welcome you back. And before we get into today's topic, which is a continued conversation with Keto Newbie, Brian, and his progress, which has been tremendous, that I want to mention a little progress that we have been achieving in the background that I would love to share. For one is, I didn't know this, but we are now downloaded in 14 different countries, and our popularity is gradually growing. It's new to me because I am unaware of all these things, and my intention was it's certainly to grow this, but not necessarily to commercialize this, which we have not done. So I'm very pleased with that. So some of the things we will be developing purposely is, like, I would love for you all, anybody out there, and if you're in Norway, you can put it in Norwegian because I can read Norwegian and speak it. Put your questions in an email, send them to me, because I will be happy to cover them on the show. Everybody has their own questions, and that's in part why we have this conversation with Brian, is to cover a lot of these basic questions where I can bring in not only the history again, which I love covering, as you know, but some of the medical and some of the nuanced difficulties that we all have. None of us are identical, and therefore we all have individual challenges physically, mentally, but we can all learn the basic information together. So that's my word. If you have any questions, put it in an email, send it to me. I will jump over the moon and I'll shout out your name should you want me to. And thank you for the question, and we will get going for that, because the point of this whole thing is to be relevant to what you're doing. Make this real. Okay, with that. So Brian, I have your chronometer up in front of me on my computer, and I so appreciate the fact that you have this a shared chronometer, and I get to look over your shoulder. You know, I'm half the physician looking at data, and I'm half feeling like I'm a stalker looking at your life. You know, so I got to go with the physician side. Let me cover the obvious. One of the things that you wanted to do in the course of this, which is kind of on the top of most everybody's list, is to drop weight. And you started and you dropped a pretty quick 12 to 14 pounds, and you plateaued for a while. And if this data is anywhere near correct, you just like blew the bottom out of that and dropped another pretty much 8 or 9 pounds. You're now down 20 pounds as an average from where you started. Give me some feedback on how that feels and what you think drove that.
It's really funny. Regarding how it feels, I literally haven't noticed anything. Regarding my mentality, I feel like I have done absolutely nothing, and I think that is the very, very best part about it. My clothes feel a lot better. Energy-wise, I'm feeling fantastic. Mentally speaking, regarding my sharpness, sleeping a whole bunch, dreaming a bunch too. I know we were talking about that in a past episode. It's been pretty great. So far, ketogenic diet has been working out.
So when somebody drops 20 pounds, 20 pounds, you go to the gym and you probably have some kettlebells or something around. But, have you gone over to pick up 20 pounds would be divided by 2.2 kilograms. And so that's roughly about an 8 kilogram kettlebell. That's not insignificant. I mean, that's a size. If you handed off 20 pounds to somebody and say, go work out with this, they could have a tough workout with a 20-pound kettlebell.
Oh, so yeah, absolutely.
What'd you do with it? Are you like wearing a sheet now to work or what? Because that's significant droppage.
My shirts are a little big. My pants are starting to, I'm required to wear a belt now. I haven't bought any new clothes yet. And I'm kind of at the point where, because I've actually dropped a bunch of weight once, or rather twice before in my life. The biggest drop that I ever made was back in high school. I dropped from about 208 or 207 pounds, and this is when I first started wrestling. And I think I finished my senior year wrestling varsity at 140 pounds. So that was probably the most significant drop that I made. But, that was a drop that, that like wrestlers make, I was a lot of crash dieting, a lot of working myself far beyond the point of exhaustion, nothing that I would ever wish or tell anybody to do really for any circumstance whatsoever. The other time was when I was playing around with intermittent fasting. I managed to lose 30 pounds in 1 month. The amazing thing about that was that I managed to gain 20 pounds in the preceding month and a half afterwards. So what I find so cool about this is that 20 pounds that I lost, I've lost this over the course of 5 going on 6 weeks now. And, the initial drop was what I noticed the most. That's like when I was feeling lethargic, had no energy. My body was adapting to, my blood sugar being a little lower and all that stuff. But that said, once my body started getting into the groove of things, when I get on the scale from one day to the next and I realize that I've lost a pound or I've lost half a pound or I've lost anything, I'm usually really surprised. I'll I'll put my hand on my stomach. I'll be like, well, I don't feel like it's any smaller, but I know that it's just a gradual process and I'm just letting it do what it does. I'm trying not to think or have any anxiety about it. And I'm feeling great.
So what have some of the people said around you? I know that you work in a pretty intimate situation there for what you do for your day job. I wonder if there's been any feedback there. And also at the gym, because you take jiu-jitsu pretty seriously and you're pretty accomplished. Have people sort of commented either way saying, dude, you need to get a smaller suit now?
I'm not quite there yet. I'm still a size A2 kimono. But, and I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to get small enough physically to fit into a smaller size, even if I do end up losing that extra 10, 15 pounds just based on my height. But that said, Anthony, he was one of the first people to be like, hey, bro, I see this is obviously working out for you. This is definitely the one that you should stick with. And, definitely no brainer. Definitely the one that, I'm trying not to think about end game here, quote unquote. I know that we had like a 60-day trial period that we're going to be doing with ketogenic diet and everything. But as everything has been going, and as much as my desire for snacking and all of that stuff, my relationship with food has just changed so drastically that I just really don't see myself changing so much after the fact. Just because it's working. I like the way I feel. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right?
I agree. In part, the reason I was teasing that out of you is that, as you can probably guess, we had somebody PM us through the Facebook group who was very interested in the ketogenic diet, and they have this person now it's a woman, and I think she's 5'4", and she now weighs about 320 pounds. Mm-hmm. She lost 70, gained it back, and so on. So she obviously is when people are so, I don't want to say the word desperate, hyper motivated to lose weight, that they tend to overshoot and not do the patient things that one needs to do just to get this started, one step in front of the other, instead of saying, I'm going to run a mile. I said, no, we don't want you to run a mile. But weight loss is a big deal, not just for people. You set yourself up for a big assignment as well. I mean, we have those data up front. There's others with even, they're obese, period. And they have some serious issues, and they also just don't want to look at themselves in the mirror. And so I ask about that because I see weight loss with the ketogenic diet as merely a side effect, not an objective. And it's something that happens along the way, and there's no mystery about it. We've covered that. There's no mystery about it in the sense that your appetite decreases, therefore you eat less, fewer calories consumed equals weight loss, period. That's how it goes. You can go into a little bit of the hormonal and so on, but it's not that sophisticated. It's that you're less hungry, you eat fewer foods, as we've talked about, and we'll get back into it again today, I'm sure. But that's the key. And, it's just become, when people start reaching out to you in that way, I think she was too embarrassed to make that post in the Facebook group, and realize a lot of people are putting some faith in this way of eating, this way of life, and they want to know that it's bona fide. going back to you remember how when we first got started, you say, I am going to list these particular kind of qualities of life. You did sleep, you did energy, you did mental focus, and certainly you did weight and so on and so forth. Do you still have that list sort of loosely in front of you? And I know we talked about you're sleeping better and now you're dreaming, and that's a big deal. What are some of those other qualitative changes apart from weight that you've noticed?
Okay. The very first one that I have to mention is level of energy. Now, I used to drink coffee all the time. I was notorious for drinking coffee here at the office. We are super, super spoiled, and we have an espresso machine. We have access to some excellent espresso, and we also have a coffee machine, and we're always stocked up with coffee. And I would literally make, and I'm not even joking, I would make 12 to 14 cups of coffee in a day. That's just a work day from, your 8:40 in the morning till 5 p.m. And I would say probably a little less than half of those would probably have a shot of espresso in there. That was me trying to make up for the fact that I do not sleep enough. I don't sleep well at all, and that I need to stay alert. And I was trying to make up for it by overstimulating myself, thinking like, oh, you just need coffee. I'm thinking it was anything like that. The only reason that I make coffee now is because I actually enjoy coffee. I'll have one cup, if I have one at all. I'm pretty sure every cup of coffee I've had since I started keto is actually recorded in my chronometer. I think I've had less than 6 of them in the last 5 or 6 weeks that I've had them. But over the course of time, I was playing around. I was using the heavy cream. I was doing the butters. I was doing a little bit of the coconut oil, the MCT oil, all that stuff. Love it. I kind of figured out my own little concoction that I like, but I just have it because I like to drink it. It gives me a nice little boost if I feel like I need it. But in most cases, I find myself getting the desire to make coffee, literally forgetting that I wanted coffee at all and just chugging along throughout my day. It's awesome. That's probably the first one. The second one would probably be quality of sleep. For many, many months prior to me switching over to a ketogenic diet, I would wake up once or twice a night, every single night for months and months and months on end. And, I just got used to the fact that, hey, maybe this is just normal for me. Apparently, my dad used to go through the same thing. I have a couple of friends who work in similar fields who tell me that they're similar, their experience is similar. But the biggest difference is that these people, they either work at night, and are ending their day while it's daylight out, which I know is kind of difficult to get used to for some people. Some people don't get used to it at all. But another is people who keep irregular patterns. But I'd be going to bed every single night at like 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock, as often as possible, still dealing with the same scenarios. If I go to bed early, I'd wake up feeling groggy. If I try to sleep in, it's the same, more of the same. But now I'm not really sure. I have no explanation for what it is besides, the fact that I changed my diet. But every single night I'm out like a light. The moment that I get to bed, when I wake up in the morning, I feel incredibly rested. And that, even if that was the only reason why I did the diet, if that was my only reason for doing it, totally do it. It's so worth it. I can't say enough.
Cool. I want to put a bookmark in where you are because I know you have more things to go through. I want to emphasize, besides good sleep is fun, your dreams, everything else. It's like going to another world. We all enjoy it. Going to the best movies. It's you're in there. But apart from that, why it's so helpful in weight loss. So I'm going to have this as a theme, is weight loss. Why it's so helpful, because, where do you get your sources of sugar, right? They come from obviously eating carbs. Carbs get converted into sugar, glucose. Pretty straightforward. So where does it come after that? Well, protein also can be converted. Excess protein can be inverted at some sort of measurable point over what is consumed. It gets converted into glucose as well. Okay, we have carbs, we have glucose. We have carbs, we have protein, get converted into glucose. That's why when you measure this diet, for instance, with epilepsy and others, is that you put the carbs and the proteins in the same groups, you add up those grams, and you compare them to grams of fats. The fats are the ones that convert into ketones. And so that's a way of, so you call it a 2-to-1 diet, on a ratio. So the conversation tends to stop that, it's carbs and proteins are the source of glucose. The fourth The third category, and probably the largest category of sugar, is endogenously produced sugar because of stress. Not because, and the liver obviously has something to do with that. That's the one that converts the glucagon, et cetera, et cetera. So what does stress have to do with sleep? Well, a person who's preoccupied, stressed, or stressed out doesn't have a good quality of sleep. In other words, the other people call it sleep hygiene. So the fact that you've just creamed the obstacles to good sleep, in other words, you're getting good sleep now, you're getting hygienically good sleep now, is that you have now decreased a whole category of glucose production that you were having before. So it's a little bit like saying inadvertently you just tailored your diet, your sugar diet, to a whole different category, and that's a dramatic change. And what you're really leading to, it's such a small thing, but it's a big thing. So, it affects insulin, it affects fat, because insulin is about getting glucose out of the blood and into your fat cells. If you can reduce the work that your insulin has to do by having lower glucose anyway and doing just fine, you're having lower glucose because you're now using some ketones, or presuming, it's like, wow, your insulin kind of has a partial vacation. You're getting better sleep. So so it's actually a very remarkable thing. The upside is, hey, I have better sleep, I dream, and so on and so forth. I wake refreshed. That's what you want to hear. But the backstory is that you're not producing sugar anymore, glucose anymore for yourself, and that subsequently has a series of dramatic changes that you just added. So that's very impressive. I love hearing that. Oh, and I wanted to add... I wanted to add to that because, it's reported, and you can go into Google Scholar or PubMed if you really want to drill down for it. If you look into ketogenic diet and antidepressants or mood, improvement, and the reason that is what we've just discovered is, yes, we took the sugar out and the ketones and so on and so forth, but when the sleep comes in, starts getting better, all these other things tend to ameliorate, get better and better, and people are going, I'm not quite sure why this is. You can measure it, all these very different neurotransmitters, and that's all interesting, but it also doesn't matter. The reason these neurotransmitters are changing, and they're all really derived from because you had higher stress hormones, cortisol in particular, and adrenaline sometimes, is that now they're all resetting themselves, and so it's a whole category of antidepressant as well. We haven't touched on that, and you didn't say that directly. You basically just said you had good sleep, and you're never a person that never struck me as depressed, but do you sense in your own life now that there's kind of a mood change, or are you so oblivious to having fun in life now you're unaware of it?
One of the things that I did notice is that, generally speaking, my mood has changed a whole lot, and it's been for the better. But what I find myself doing, and I always kind of attributed to more of like a mental awareness, alertness, consciousness type thing. But when I'm given information, I think about it for at least a moment or two before I say anything. And in those moments, those are usually when people decide whether they're going to react negatively or react positively to something, or acting differently, whatever the case may be. And, negativity has something that has been rolling itself further and further away from my day-to-day life, which is a super, super excellent thing. Just because, when you're, I know much like yourself, you're a small business owner. When you're working, a lot of times, like, you might be working by yourself, or you might be working with a small group, maybe just you and Judi. When you're the only person that you have to rely on to take care of all of your tasks, having any negative frame of thought is the worst thing for you. And it's so stifling on so many different levels. And in a lot of cases, you don't even realize it, that something that's totally unrelated to what it is that you're doing might be negatively affecting your output at work, how you treat other people, the way you have conversations, all that stuff. It's like it's all one big ball of the same. And I want to say that I didn't have any problems with anything like that prior to this. No, that'd be a lie. I definitely get concerned, stressed, worried, sad about stuff like anybody else. The only thing is that I've been noticing a lot less of it. When I'm getting similarly negative or poor news about anything, I don't feel bad. I don't hold on to it. I'm just, I can breathe. And it might be a culmination of, eating better, not getting that stress from not sleeping, feeling better because I might be losing weight, subconsciously, all that stuff. But, mood for sure. And I probably should be recording it more.
Wow. That's impressive. That's impressive. So, we all are students and we all are teachers, and you're a student in this sort of context, but evolving to a teacher once you evolve this way. What would you say to somebody who's 4 weeks behind you or haven't started yet, just on this particular aspect of mood?
The only thing that I would probably say to somebody who hasn't started yet, or somebody who's like, say, a month behind me, who might be struggling or hitting those road bumps that are making it difficult for them in those moments. Oh man, I'm not really sure who said it. But I'm actually just gonna say a quote real quick, and I hate to be the tacky quote guy, but I always thought this one was so great. If I quit now, I will soon be where I once was. And back then, I so desperately wanted to be where I am now. So when you think about that, right, and you really internalize it, you're kind of just telling yourself like, I guess I just sort of have to eat it and just sort of be miserable for now. And I really wish that that wasn't the case, but just know that everyone goes through whatever it is that you're going through regarding switching from a standard American diet or whatever diet that you had into a ketogenic diet. And that everything that you're going through is normal and that it will absolutely pass. But the feeling of present you after you've passed to present you before you even started keto are two totally different people. So that negative person that might be telling you, oh, I can't do this, this will be hard, you're going to be laughing at that person once you get over that point.
Wow. That's impressive. I forgot. And you'll also be a philosopher, or maybe you already are, but that's great stuff. No, good. All right. So do you have any more in your checkoffs? Because this is basically your list. I remember you're Mr. Data, in case nobody else has caught on to that. This guy is very data driven in his life. But you were setting up for yourself, these are the things I'm going to measure, and the obvious one was weight because it's empirical and we can all see it and it's a physical manifestation. But you had all these other ones. What about mental clarity? That was something that people toss off like, what's mental clarity? So what I'll say to you now, how would you even interpret that concept, mental clarity? How's mental clarity going for you, Brian? And you'll say, what exactly?
Okay, so I would say that definitely comes down to how honest you are with yourself. I know that I am a person who is very capable of being easily distracted under any circumstance whatsoever. So if for whatever reason, anything, it could be a shiny object floating in the corner of somewhere, I'll have to give it a peek. I can't help myself. But Brian, before ketogenic diet, regarding mental focus, I would sit down at my desk and very often, and almost every single day, I'd find myself frustrated because I would start working on something, realizing that I had another project that was still open-ended that I needed to hem up. And of course, I would stop what I would be doing to go and check out what it is that was. And, I would look into a little bit further, and lo and behold, an hour would go by and I'd be starting it, or I'd be working on it, not realizing that I've literally put down another project to go ahead and work on that. So I lost track of time. I lost track of a lot of different things, staying on task, things like that. I mean, being distracted by my phone, being distracted by food, how easily I'm distracted by other people, and realizing whether it's being distracted by other people, you realize that, okay, well, when it's just the one distracted, it's just one distraction. But if another distraction pops up and that's how your mentality is, all of a sudden that distraction has distracted you from the other one. And eventually you're going to get back to the other one. So it just becomes a revolving circle of distractions upon distractions upon distractions. Now, I know that is a super convoluted, super messy method or circumstance regarding thought. Because, there's literally so much to be done. We're all busy people. We all have super involved lives, and everybody feels that they're all super important, that everything that they're doing is, paramount. When in reality, a lot of stuff that people do on a day-to-day basis is really very trivial. There's only a few things that we really need to take care of that are absolutely paramount. I am at the point now where I am just fed up and tired with being distracted by stuff. And because I know that I now enjoy being involved and actually concentrating on a project for hours and hours at a time, all of a sudden I see myself taking those distractions away from myself, acknowledging them, putting them in drawers, keeping them away from me, working away from other people, choosing not to do certain pieces of my work at certain hours of the day, choosing to stay at the office. Like, these are all things that, as I've changed my relationship with food and as I've changed my relationship with how I think about work in general, I feel like I like it more because I'm actually doing it more. And it's really difficult to sort of put it into words, but there is literally less in my brain that is keeping me from doing the things that I know I should be doing, be it work-related tasks, things that I got to take care of at the house. I'm remembering more things. I'm recalling things from memory a lot more. Things that I forgot to pick up while I was going grocery shopping. Little menial tasks, like even just adding a tag while I'm working on a recording. Just little things like that. But those little things, as small and insignificant as they may seem, make my life so much easier. I almost don't even really know how to really even address it without having with it making any real sense. I just like to think more, or that whatever change is happening to my body or happening to me psychologically or mentally is just been a positive change that I've seen no negatives from. It's just been helping me. It's just been helping me, supplementing me in some way that I can't even really put into words.
Good answer. A goody. I love that. On memory, do you have, I will agree. So basically you're saying things that I know, and that's what I'm trying to have you say from your experience, but the memory is a big deal. Do you remember your dreams?
So super nerd alert. All of my dreams have actually involved a Dungeons and Dragons character that I presently have in a campaign with a bunch of my friends here in Jersey. So, all of my dreams have been some form of fantasy, battle, magic related something rather that has absolutely blown me away.
That's great. That's such a good answer. That is such a good answer. So I bet now, by the way, and here's, it's not meant to be a test question. If I said, okay, can you align yourself with the dream you had last night relative to your Dungeons and Dragons character? I mean, can you almost pick it up and saying, dang, I got to ask this guy this question when I get back to him tonight? I mean, is it that kind of thing almost?
I can tell that they're set in similar places, or at least I have the feeling that I'm in a familiar place, but I haven't gotten to the point where I'm going lucid and I'm actually having conversations with people. What I am recalling are actions. I remember sensations or feelings. Like when I pick stuff up, when I pick things up, I can feel it, which is really, really strange. And, it's just really interesting that I'm that actively present in my own mind while I'm asleep. I know that when I was younger, I used to dream all the time, would dream the craziest things. But regarding vividness and all of that, I mean, it's as real as my dreams have ever been. Well,
that's, as I say, it's like going to the movies. Good for you. You'll get to lucid. And I don't even hold that as an objective. I just feel that it's an element that comes in and out of these friends that you make at night, in your case, your characters. Okay, let's get to kind of the heart of it. Most people, when they think of ketogenic diet, the whole story is supposed to be about food. And so we started with you and said, all right, the first thing is, guess what? You're going to drop your carbs down to 20 grams. And thank goodness you're so data driven. And we have this mutual site that we can look at how you're doing. I look at this and I don't see that you have any difficulty with it, but that would be a difficult place to start for a lot of people, is like dropping carbs. It's a little bit like saying, guess what? We're going to go to this small island in Norway and I'm going to drop you off for a year. Not only do you not learn the language, you don't even have the clothes to live there, but it will work out. You just, do your best. You were like a fish in water. You just picked it up, and I loved looking at the numbers. We'll talk about what's your side of that. It's like, did you will yourself out of discipline just to do this because you want, as you say by your quote, you didn't want to quit, you didn't want to go back to where you were, or has it been easy for you? Are you on a routine? Do you have obstacles? Do you go, gosh, I really miss that morning croissant with butter and coffee, or ice cream, or whatever the thing is, or the beer? It's like, do you have any of these things that you miss, or have any of these things that are obstacles that you see that will be a problem for you to continue with? Well,
that's a really great question. What I found to be difficult in the beginning was mostly because, when we think about food, especially like if you're someone living in America, it's really difficult to imagine it without something like some sort of bread, some sort of rice, some sort of breading on whatever protein it is that you're going to be having, something very, very much so potentially fried. And you think about all these things, you sort of like put them, you sort of tuck them away and you're like, oh, okay, well, if I'm going on a diet, that means I can't have the good stuff, right? Well, for me, I've always known that the good stuff usually isn't the bread of whatever it is that you're eating or the rice that goes along with whatever the rest of the meal is. So once I got to the point where, okay, I knew that I had like 3 or 4 different food options that I could hang with, the guesswork started going away. And once the guesswork goes away, I mean, I'm at the point now where literally I'll just write down what it is that I'm eating on paper. I won't even go to my phone. I won't go to a computer. I'll write down all of the measurements for everything that I ate, knowing that I'm not even close to going over 20 grams of carbs for the day. Just for a quick, for instance, right? Yesterday I consumed 1,716 calories. I didn't even once think about entering any of the information into Chronometer until the very end of the day. I was at 9.6 grams. And that was like me, like literally not even thinking about what it is that I was going to be eating for the day at all. So, in the beginning, it was hard. I think there were 2 days. There was one day I ate 26 grams, and I think there was another day I ate 21 grams. And it was really early, and I was super, super concerned about it. And I realized that that's not a number that you should be intimidated by. 20 grams sounds really hard, but it's so much easier than you would really think that it is. I feel like getting away from any mysticism of what that number might actually means, that you have to be so hardline about it, I think it goes away, especially when you start realizing how few carbs there are in food when you're not consuming sugar intentionally or like not having bread intentionally. I mean, I live in New Jersey. I'm in the bagel, I dare I say pizza capital. I'm so sorry, New York. Of the world. And I mean, literally within a 10-mile radius of me, I can get some of the best pizza that anybody will ever have. And pizza is probably one of my favorite foods. I could probably eat pizza every single day. But one thing that I did not miss about eating all of these super carby foods when I made the transition was not feeling bloated or lethargic or tired after eating. That one change regarding diet made me feel so much better about ketogenic diet in general, just because I didn't realize how negatively that was affecting me, how much it was negatively affecting my mood, my ability to even want to do stuff. I mean, if I have a really, really big lunch and I'm feeling really lethargic, and I eat my lunch at 2:00 if that's if I'm not recording. Usually it's later in the day. But if I eat my lunch at 3:30, well, hey, guess what's going to happen? I'm totally going to lose out on the second half of my day because I'm going to be tired until basically dinner time. And at that point, I'll probably be home. And if I go ahead and I do that and then I eat, and then what? I did nothing except for eat a whole bunch of carbs all day, sat around and got nothing done. You're not going to feel good about that at all. But when that changes and all of a sudden you stop feeling that lethargic feeling, when you stop feeling bloated and you feel like you have all that energy that you can, you're still awake, you're still with it together 100%, all of a sudden your relationship with that changes almost immediately. I know I mentioned it earlier, but my relationship with food has done a complete 180. I can't even compare my eating habits, or I have no desire to even go back to my old eating habits. Like every now and then, I'll see a video of somebody making a really amazing brownie recipe with toffee and caramel and all this stuff, and it looks incredible. But then I think about it, I'm just like, I could probably eat 2 bites of that before I realize I'd have to stop. It's just not there. It doesn't do the same for me anymore. I'm not sure if
you've matured.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I directly answered your question. I kind of went off on a tangent there, but
you've done very well. You've come a long way, Grasshopper. Else I can say, you really just nailed this thing. So some questions of how much dairy do you have, just generally speaking? And I ask that not because of you or that I'm watching, what you're eating right now specifically, but I find that is an independent variable in the ketogenic diet, and some people sort of overprescribe it. I can't really have much of it at all. I make my exceptions, but I know I'll be congested or have stomach cramps or something, but that's just me, and not everybody's that way. How is dairy Do you have any? What kind of dairy do you have? I see heavy cream there periodically. Do you have a lot of cheese? Do you, what are your limitations, or just what has been your experience that you've chosen to use or not use?
Carl, in the grand scheme of all things, I'm probably that might be the one area where I might be quote unquote a bad keto newbie. I actually consume a whole bunch of dairy. But there's a reason for this. It's not just because I understand we had a conversation previously about how cheese is, you made a comparison between dairy and blood sugar and alcohol and alcoholics.
Yep.
Prior to me switching over to a ketogenic diet, I had believed for many, many years that I was sensitive to dairy. And I'm not sure if it was a culmination of just poor health or what the case was, but dairy just never worked well for me. Once I started switching over and I started introducing dairy and I started having it regularly, I saw zero problems whatsoever with me actually consuming dairy. I didn't have any negative effects regarding digestion. And when I am at the gym, I don't find myself getting any excessive burning in my muscles, which is what you would get from like lactic acid fermentation, which is another thing that is surprising because I thought that would basically just shoot right through the roof since I'm having cheese or heavy cream or butter almost every single day. But I'm having, I'm actually just going to click through really quick. That's yesterday, butter, heavy cream, cheese. The day before that, I see butter, I see cheese again. The day after that, more cheese. The day after that, more cheese, more butter, heavy cream, every single day, basically without discretion. And not for nothing, it's really been helping me regarding getting my fat portion of the day. I don't know why this happens to be the case. Mm-hmm. I just have too much access to chicken breast. So I'm eating chicken breast a lot, more so than I would really, really like to. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, there's really no fat in it. So it really kind of messes up me trying to get more fat than protein on any given day. So really it's really kind of holding me down, so to speak. But here or there, I have been using the MCT oil. However, I haven't been recording it because I don't know the best way to record it since it's sort of like a unique product in what it is. And I'm not really sure how it is that I should be interpreting that.
The degree that you want to keep track of it, you can ballpark on a per teaspoon basis. I had to, just a small tangent, because I was working with Dr. Stephen Canay, at least in correspondence, and I give him my ketone numbers, and he goes, "What the heck are you doing?" So then I had to figure out what I was dosing myself on a daily basis, with the mayo included, and that what I put on. And so at some point, you may want to ballpark what your daily consumption is, and now you reference it once, just like you've done everything else. Reference it once, then you know how to put it in. I think it is valuable. I think you're doing great. So I should say, you're not broken and I'm not going to fix it. But I think it's a valuable addition. I looked at you're now, by the way, to transition, you're now taking your blood ketones and your obviously blood, you've been doing blood glucose for a while. Mm-hmm. And your numbers are good. Your ketone numbers it's a continual transition, and that'll make other changes. We haven't even gotten to working out, but you're going to see that even get stronger to the degree it's positive now, and sleep and all the other things that ketones drive. But this is not necessarily a ketone-loving diet, even though we call it a ketogenic diet. It's basically more about getting glucose down and giving your insulin a vacation, and then using this alternative source of energy, ketones, as a substitute. And you're doing that fine. I wanted to ask also, because do you have salt in your diet? Are you using salt?
Yes, I am using salt. I'm not sure where you stand regarding measuring salt, because I don't think that I've ever measured salt before in my life. Prior to ketogenic diet, I had absolutely zero taste for salt. Could not eat salty foods. Couldn't stomach them. They hurt my stomach. I just wouldn't think that it tasted very good at all, and just in general. Here I am 5-6 weeks into ketogenic diet, and I find myself putting salt in everything. And I don't really know much to say about that. Literally, I'll literally take salt in a shaker and I'll just shake it onto whatever it is that I'm eating. I've yet to make anything that is too salty for myself, and I know that in the measurements, I don't know if I've ever put an entire teaspoon in my food. Normally, if I'm going to put salt on something, if I'm cooking it, I'll put it after I've cooked it, not during. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I should be accounting for that. If I should just be like putting a guesstimation or what the case may be.
I would leave it. You're exactly right. Do it all by taste. I'm exactly the way you are. I had no desire for salt in anything. I sort of avoided it only because I thought it was synthetic crap and I didn't like salty food. No, I do a pinch in everything. I do a pinch in my coffee. I do a pinch on my food. I just, it's up to your taste, but I'm glad you're doing it. And this is sort of a public announcement about salt for people on the ketogenic diet. And that is, we talked about, when you stop having carbs, which is a carbohydrate, it's a carb water, molecule. Well, and that's an interesting way of saying why we're dropping weight initially. That first 10 pounds for you was in everybody, it's pretty much that way. And then you go into a whole transition, is that when you have fewer carbs in your diet, your kidneys do a reset. That is, the reset is that they tend to restrict less sodium and they discharge more sodium. And so when you're retaining less sodium, it also means you're retaining less water. So a lot of people lose that water weight right up front. So it is important to have salt. And when you think about, old expressions like he's worse as salt, and, where did these expressions come from? Clearly, well before there was table salt around and salt was as popular as now, is that salt was a pretty hard thing to come by. And that was one of the things that they, so where did the ketogenic diet come from? We think it came from a couple million years ago, Paleolithic time, et cetera, but there was a time in which there was very few carbs on a regular basis, and therefore salt was very important to them. And so it's very important to us right now. So that's why I asked, because people can get into trouble if for some reason they're not starting to take salt and they're going to start finding themselves cramping up and having other issues about dehydration, because your sense of thirst, I'll speak for myself, is just not that prominent. So it's almost if you add salt in there, you'll at least be more conscious of drinking water. Do you drink water much? Do you have any sense of thirst about yourself?
Oh boy. I don't know where my thirst went, but it has dwindled quite drastically. I think like 2 or 3 weeks ago when we had a conversation, I was telling you about how thirsty I was all the time. And I think it was like my body just responding to just generally being dehydrated and not doing very much about it. But I'm at the point now where I don't think about drinking water. I don't thirst is like it's like a fleeting memory. Like I literally tell myself to drink water because my mouth is dry and because I'm noticing that my mouth is dry, not because I'm actually thirsty. Like my body's like, oh dude, I need water right now. It's like, I could totally wet my mouth real quick. I could do that, and I'll get up and I'll go and I'll have I'll have a cup of water and get back to it. But it's funny because I remember I went to the gym the other day, and I remember leading up to going to the gym. Now you should really be drinking water if you're going to go to the gym. You're going to sweat a whole bunch, right? I had half a glass of water leading into going to the gym. I was at the gym. I drank half a Poland Spring bottle of water, right? And maybe I finished it on my way home. I took a shower. I went to bed. I didn't even clear a liter of water that day, and I worked out for an hour and 10 minutes. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm gonna get thirsty at some point. Is this bad for me? Is this dangerous? Should I be concerned about dehydration at this point? Because
what I say, and answer it for other people who asked a similar question, because this is a standard place to be when you get into the ketogenic diet. Be conscious of water. I don't force myself to drink a lot of water. And sometimes I go to the gym and I come back from the gym with the same full bottle of water. So it's about salt. And so keep your salt up. It drives your thirst. When you know you're going to be at the gym, at least bring your water bottle and try to be conscious of drinking it. But it's one of those things. It's odd. And you could say it's not necessarily dangerous unless you're doing something on the other side of the equation that makes you even be more, diuretic. You're getting even more fluids out, because you would think it's actually probably a good thing, if you're thinking back to where this diet supposedly existed millions of years ago, is that the low salt was hard to come by, so people had low salt. They ate very few carbs. Sweating less and getting rid of fluids would be something that would have to adapt as well to preserve your fluids, and so not to be an automatic sweater or automatic, urinate a lot. So those functions are kept in check. But still, we're making this transition from the 20th century and all the foods we've eaten before. So I'd be a little more conscious, and I say this to everybody, myself included, of drinking water. It's just not a natural for me, and it should be. So it's usually a trigger. Getting into the next little thing, the trigger is usually muscle cramps and so on. Have you had any muscle cramps? I mean, are you hale and hearty and you don't even know what I'm talking about, or has it happened to you every so often?
My right calf is the culprit in that scenario. There is a position that there is a technique in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's called butterfly guard. You actually hook your feet into behind the thighs of the person who is attacking you at that moment, so you can sweep them, throw them, do all sorts of stuff. There is a sweep from there that I really, really like, and I've tried it twice, and both times I cramped midway, both times. So I've definitely been trying to get a little extra stretch in, and regarding that, if I know I'm going to go to the gym, I try to drink a little bit more water, but that's my first experiences with any kind of cramping.
Yeah. No, I say, so let that be sort of the harbinger for you, because some people wake up in the middle of the night because they have a Charlie horse, usually from their calf, sometimes their leg. So the two causes are water. We've already covered that. The other is it is well documented that people on a ketogenic diet tend to get low in magnesium, and magnesium serves a lot of functions in our body, but one of them it serves in terms of muscle relaxation. The calcium is the contractor. Calcium's released from the sarcomeres, so on and so forth, and it makes our muscles, strength. Suddenly we can flex. But what makes it so we can then stretch that muscle out is the releasing of magnesium. It's the opposite. What I would suggest, and I mentioned before, is like you get a magnesium supplement. They're all good. Just do not get two kinds. Don't get magnesium oxide, and do not get magnesium sulfate, otherwise known as Epsom salts. They're just not as effective. They're not terrible. They will give you more loose stools and less about magnesium getting into your blood. I generally prefer, and I haven't heard other people suggest this, coming from a naturopathic background, I prefer a calcium magnesium combination, so we call it CalMag. It's been used as long as since the early 90s and probably 100 years before that, for that particular reason. Now, I found that much more effective with cramps than just giving people magnesium, but you can choose. So a lot of people use magnesium citrate, and that's fine if people don't have a citric acid problem, and some people do, just like people have dairy problems. And so glycinate, malate, all those are fine. I prefer CalMag. But down the road, so now when you've had a little bout happened when you're exercising, and it certainly stretch and all those other good things to do, but I would guess that it's precipitated by your lack of water and your knowing the lack of magnesium. You're going to probably get more of that, in other words. So merely FYI. I was just going to say, if you have any more questions or something you want to pop into it, we'll sort of bring this to a close, but yeah, go for it.
So I've basically been flying blind, so to speak, this entire time. I've basically, the only thing that I've basically gone into ketogenic diet conceptually, and I'm actually going to go ahead and reiterate a little bit further for all of the people who might be listening. Carl Goldkamp, the gentleman who is helping me and coaching me along this process, or not necessarily coaching me, but sort of guiding me, so to speak, through this process, he's a doctor. He knows a lot about everything, and if we wanted to get into the nitty-gritty and really crunch the numbers super hard, we could totally do that. But I went on the advice of don't overthink it, only focus on the 20 grams of total carb, and try to see if you can get more fat than protein. And that's basically more or less how I've been going about my day. If I'm not sure about something, I'll literally go into Chronometer if I'm not sure about what it is that I'm about to eat, and I'll put the whole meal together into Chronometer first just to look at it. And I actually took about probably like half hour, 45 minutes in the very beginning, playing around with different food combinations, just seeing what the results regarding the macros would be. And more or less now, every time I go into the kitchen, I usually won't measure anything until after I've actually cooked it. And what it's actually doing for me is it's giving me the opportunity to, maybe portion something out for myself for later on in the day or the next day, which is always great. Or another thing too, sort of gives me a better idea via trial and error whether or not I'm doing the wrong things preparing my food. I just figured like, okay, I got 20 units. Okay, that's half a carb. All right, cool. And just sort of rocking it that way. I know that some of the cheeses that I eat have carbs in them, along with certain other things that I've had, like certain types of sausage and stuff like that, that I know had some semblance of carb going on in there. In every case, if I knew I was going to have sausage, I always allotted myself a little bit more carbs for that part of the day that I knew I was going to do that. But so long as like you're more or less being mindful of, okay, I'm not exceeding 20 carbs. Okay, am I getting more fat than protein? Like that's pretty much like how I've been flying this whole time. There was never really any exact measurements or anything like that. In the very, very beginning, yeah, there was a whole bunch of that, but that was because my eye didn't know what, 50 grams of bacon would look like. My eye didn't know what, what half a cup or a cup of chicken cut up would look like, things like this. And so, as those mysteries sort of peel themselves back, you feel more and more relaxed about doing the same things that you've been doing the whole time, which is more or less, where I'm at right now. It's a lot easier said than done, but when you start doing it, you realize how truthfully easy it actually is.
No, that's exactly the vibe that I try to have people pick up on, is to keep it simple. You look at what's the most critical thing they can do. It's obviously control their carbs. And after that, to the degree that they're comfortable and they're willing, you're a data guy, look at the amount of, go calculate your protein and just leave it simple for a while and find out what shows up in their lives as an obstacle and start working with those obstacles. So it's kind of a way I like to implement it, because if you give too many variables to anybody, it makes it very uncomfortable to start, and they feel that it's inevitable failure no matter what direction they do. So we just gave you one thing to think about for the most part. Excellent. Good answer. So want me to close it out? I think that was a good summary. I really appreciate this talk today. Do you have everything you want to say? Go ahead.
That was basically everything. I really have I have a couple of questions that I want to prepare for the next time that we speak, just because we're getting a little bit closer for us to do the DNA analysis and the blood work, and I just had a couple of questions regarding that. But regarding what it is that we're doing now, normally this is like the part of the show where I'd ask like, oh hey, so is there anything that you want me to change from this week to next week? But is there anything that you want me to change or add or to consider?
Not really. So I look at, you've dropped now a little over 20 pounds. So I think we had a 60-pound goal. So you're a third of your way there. So I'm happy with that, because that's kind of the ticket that we wanted to measure that was important to you. And it looks like that's now just a side effect, which is great. I've watched your calorie consumption. It's been up and down, which I'm fine with. Nobody's a robot. And your lowest day was 320 calories in one day. That's impressive, because you're following what's important to you as opposed to trying to fill in a box with numbers. No, I would say unless, if this simple approach is working and you have all the good things to say that you've said about it, I would leave it at that. There's no one more little trick up my sleeve. We're going to, because you're still transitioning. Your body is still adapting to all these little things. I just look for cramps, and I look for, the things we've already talked about. And if we can stay out of the woods there, I get cramps every so often, and it reminds me these are the things I need to do. But I think we're good. We have no problems, and I don't see any problems creeping up. But that's the method here: is to sort of treat the obstacles as they're going. You clearly are doing what you set out to do on the carbs, and I'm interested to see how blood ketone levels will transition for you. I don't care that they go up any more than they are. There's studies out there, they say, that are as effective, even less. I tend to run 3 to 7 on a regular basis. Don't know how I got there, but that's my norm now, and that's fine too. So different people are at different levels. All good things, Brian. I think it's a spectacular opportunity for you to share and for me to be witness to your transition. I really appreciate your spirit. I certainly appreciate your accomplishments.
Oh, I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you for holding my hand through the process. I really do appreciate it as well. But this is actually a really super layman's question that I have to ask, because I'm sure a lot of the people who are listening to this have been unaware regarding numbers. Today, I checked my blood ketone, and I was showing a 2.7 for ketone. Am I in ketosis?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Arguably, and there's not enough experts on there, but we'll say it's more of a consensus out there that you can say anything beyond 0.5 ketones, that is milligrams per deciliter, qualifies you as in ketosis. I tend not to, so that's the statement. It's like a disclaimer. You have to sort of say that. So you can cross it once you're in it, you're in it. I like seeing numbers a little meatier, like your 2.7. I like to see things that are, I like closer to 3, but people will argue you just need to be at 0.5 to 1.5. So those are the numbers. We're all sort of finding out our little place here, but no, you've been over 0.5 for a while. And yeah, I know you've just gotten into starting your blood ketone levels, and so we'll see where those goes.
I think my lowest reading for blood ketone. Hold on a second. I think I'm going through real quick just to see if I can get a good pulse here. I think the lowest that I've had for blood ketone so far. Lots of consistent plus over 2.7s. Let's see, a 3.3 here. Mm-hmm. I think my lowest was like a 1.1 or a 1.2 once I was actually taking it by blood. But that's actually a really, really important thing, because I'm sure that a lot of people who are getting into diets just in general, they worry so much about those numbers. I have been less than exact regarding what foods I should be eating. The only thing that I've been trying to stay hardline about is that staying below 20 total grams of carbs, and without very much thought about it at all, and without really doing too much measuring of really anything, here I am in ketosis. So anybody who's thinking that, it might be too complicated, they don't want to think about all this stuff, kind of winging it as best I could, because I didn't really have, I'm not in a position to do a whole lot of meal prep. I have very, very little time to myself in general. So the fact that, yes, we successfully made it into ketosis, not really being super, super duper exact. I kind of like that. I think that's actually good. And I really hope that some people can feel good about that.
Yeah, no, I think so. To summarize all that you said, and you sort of said before, is sort of getting your head out of the way. Your body has its own intelligence, and this is just one of those things. You feed it. Now we're just talking about macros. We haven't got into the quality of foods, but I know that you've had some good quality of foods. Get out of the way of your body doing what it needs to do, and this is now the empirical representation of that statement. How's that? Okay, with that, let's. I'd love to close it out and simply wrap it up with a couple things. There's a few questions I'm going to ask you. If not the next session, then I'll write these things down. We're going to talk about what they call the dawn effect. We're going to, and don't answer these, Brian. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to ask you about if you've taken any sort of glucose and ketone readings after any of your workouts and what they look like, because that's a big deal. And then we're going to ask more about any sort of strength training or workout training feedback you may have experienced. And don't answer that, Brian, until we get to it. All right. So with that, thank you, everybody, for being listening again. And I hope this has been valuable. It's certainly been valuable for us two guys here. I would like to remind you again, please email me any questions. Carl, Karl, at salamander, SALMANDER -bay, BAY.com. So it's Carl at salamanderbay.com. You can put it in your native language if you want to. I'm sure I can get a translator on it through Google, and I'd be happy to answer your questions and shout you out.
Okay, fantastic. And of course, anybody can come check you out at your Facebook group, Keto Naturopath, correct?
You bet. You're always invited to that.
Fantastic.
Thanks for reminding me.
Not a problem. Hey, you have a
great
one. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks for listening. For anybody who has any questions, feel free to contact me on our Facebook group, Keto Naturopath. Same name as our podcast. I'm open to any questions, and we plod through the good and the bad, the difficult and the easy, week after week.